Welcome to Encounter Wargaming. I'm Jay, back with another Relics of the Dark Age. Today we're going to be checking out the Warhammer Siege from 1988 hardcover. So here it is, the famous Warhammer Siege. So as you can see, this book is ancient, and even though obviously it was made for Warhammer, for the old Warhammer, it is also compatible with the original edition of Warhammer 40,000, which was pretty awesome, because 40k really was sort of a spin-off of Warhammer, I guess, in the beginning, with Rogue Trader. And so this rule set allowed you to have fortifications, as well as assaulting fortifications, and of course those rules were compatible with both Rogue Trader and the Warhammer of the time. So I figured this would be a good one to go on to next, since the last Relics video we did was one of the 3 Rogue Trader books I have, this being another one of the 3, and then I'll go on to the Realm of Chaos book in a future video. But right now we're going to look at this because I've also done the original editions of Warhammer in this playlist. So I wanted to keep going sort of somewhat in chronological order. I mean, we're not keeping in perfect chronological order. I do have a whole bunch more old school Warhammer books that I haven't shown you guys yet, but since we're going on the Rogue Trader theme, I kind of wanted to whip out this one because it's a wicked cool looking hardcover, and it's just an excellent blast from the past. So as we can see here, by Rick Priestley. Again, this is the guy that invented Warhammer. I mean, really, we owe Rick Priestley everything. Just to give you a look at the cover, we got the back here with this cool siege tower. So let's look at the copyright date, which is not on the back here actually. Oh, there it is, 1988, a Games Workshop publication. Damn. So this book came out when I was 4 years old. That's how crazy old this is. So let's do it. Let's crack it. So, a little out of the ordinary right to start. We've got all the summaries in the front, which is interesting. Usually this kind of stuff is included in the back of the book. But hey, we got it all in the front, so there you go. That's pretty cool. Ladders, grappling hooks, going through the basic phases of the game and how the new siege rules, I guess, affect these phases. Yep, magic phase. Magical boundary, that's interesting. Supernatural creatures, rallying, strategic, cool. And then various construction for your thing here. Cool. So, I guess that basically summarizes the whole book. Let's actually get into the real book itself. Excellent. Warhammer Siege. Alright, so writer Rick Priestley, illustrations. Yeah, the anatomy of a castle, using a castle map, structures, gates and doors, assaults and ramparts, large humanoids. That's interesting. Oh, I guess giants have a little easier time at getting over walls than, say, you know, a human would. Makes a lot of sense. Flying creatures, magic, fire. Cool. And then here we go. Siege rules in the 41st millennium. So I guess it's not entirely compatible with both rule systems. They just included both rule systems in the same book, I suppose. So there probably is minor differences. There you go, army list adaptations, fortress compositions, alien constructions, defending fortresses, blah blah blah. Cool. Awesome. Look at this stuff. Wow, yeah, this is definitely the old school aesthetic. Look at that. All these old pencil drawings like we saw in the original Warhammer books that we looked at. The Fantasy Siege. It's a stupido to build a wall if you ain't gonna hide behind it. Orcs. Cool. Well, sounded like Spanish orcs. Building a castle, and there's the old plastic castle the Games Workshop used to sell. Awesome. So they're giving you some layouts of ways you can do your fortifications using that kit. Badass. That is a cool piece of art. I really like that. That is wicked cool. Castle von Spratz. Badass. Look at the orcs back then, too. So crazy. Wow. Sorry, sometimes it's old school. I just got to stop and stare sometimes because this old school artwork is just like, it's so different than the aesthetic we have nowadays. I think things have evolved so much. Sometimes I look at these old books and I just have to stop. So I'm sorry if you get some dead air there, guys, but sometimes I just go wow and have to like really gander at it. So again, castle maps, setting up a castle. Here we go. Showing you how it all works. So doing it in simple dividable sections. The anatomy of a castle, cool. Technical terms, blah 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 blah. Here we go. Ground level, level 2, level 3, battlement roofs. So it's very much the way it worked even in 40k up until 4th edition, where you had levels. Level 1, level 2, level 3. And that mattered for lines of sight and things like that for various size models, like I say. I'm not entirely sure of this fantasy rules set at this time, because like I say, I was 4 years old, so I wasn't even into the game yet. But I would imagine things like giants and things like that obviously have an easier time reaching over a wall than, say, dudes would. Doors, doorways, gates, gateways. Cool. It's basically explaining to you how to arrange your castle using the plastic kit, or I suppose you could even use the same measurements to build your own analog terrain. Some of this artwork is just so cool. I mean, it almost looks like something out of Lord of the Rings or something at this point, right? As opposed to like that standard Warhammer aesthetic that we're used to. So, the GM's castle map. That's the crazy part there. Because I know at least in Rogue Trader, you needed a game master. So I would imagine that even earlier incarnations of Warhammer would require that too, and I guess in this case, it does. Somebody's got to set up the scenario for the players, which is interesting. I'm glad that they just switched to the two-person system, because I can't imagine having to play a game of Warhammer with a third person being involved. It would actually make it really hard to just get a pickup game going, I suppose, but I guess that didn't really exist back then. This was all about more of a role-playing side of things, you know, creating a narrative. They still try and promote the forged the narrative situation, but back at this time, it was really more about narrative than simulation. Cool. Models may be moved, occupying sections and levels. Excellent. Cool, so now we've got vertical movements, rules for ramparts, courtyards, moving between towers and levels, stairs, makes sense. Unit cohesion, I guess that's the equivalent of unit coherency, so being, obviously if you have a unit split between multiple levels, you're still going to have to keep them in coherency, very much like you had to in 40k, back in the city fight days. Movement outside of a castle, okay. Badass. Look at that! Wow, that is old school artwork. Just take a good look at that for a second, guys. There's so much going on there, that's crazy. I love these old ink drawings too. Because nowadays everything's, you know, very realistic looking. Back in these days, each artist had sort of their own style, and they all had a very, like, this is very comic book right here. But they all had a very, you know, comical aesthetic, for lack of a better word. Alright, combat's in the castle. Who fights, splitting units, disengaging. Character associations with castles, that's interesting. Modifiers. Going through the phases of the game, obviously, so now we're into the combat phase. Look at this. That is so cool. Look at these orcs. That drawing there actually really reminds me, I don't know if this is totally off topic, but I don't know if any of you out there have seen the old animated Hobbit movie, the old cartoon, but that reminds me of one of the scenes where they were encountering the goblins. I guess the Goblin King in the caves there. Cool. Retreating, retiring, and routing. Interesting. So the castle itself has very different mechanics I would imagine, than just running around a normal battlefield. And to tell you the truth, for it to be this detailed, it kind of makes me scared as to how detailed the actual rules were. But talking to D&D nerds and stuff like that, since, you know, we kind of share a community in many ways, you know, we're all miniature gamers, I've had, I don't play D&D myself, but I've had explained to me that the rules used to be super complicated, and then nowadays, you know, they're very streamlined and simple, which is actually better for the most part. And I feel the same way about Warhammer and 40k. I mean, having played 8th edition 40k quite a bit now, I'm much happier with the streamlining. So in this case, we're still at a stage where it's very much role-playing based. Hero hammer, character heavy, really granular rule system. Like as you can see here, there's like 8 pages of rules just for walls and towers and stuff like that alone, and how they interact with the turn sequence. So here we go. We're getting into missiles and how, so that would be, you know, bows and arrows and stuff like that. Bolt throwers and various other projectile weaponry and how that affects the siege warfare in this era of Warhammer. So here we go. We've got firing arcs. Obviously you're measuring distances on an angle. Makes total sense. Here we go. Rampart fire arc is 45 degrees. 45 degrees from the straight ahead point, so I suppose that's a 90-degree triangle, really, but 45 degrees from the sides of the door, making perfect sense. Sides of the gate, I should say. Here we've got that siege tower. That would be the best way, I guess, to counter a wall. To be at the same height to start with, for sure. Here we go. Now we're getting into some crazy stuff. So here you go, 90-degree fire arcs all the way around, so it depends on which direction your guys are facing, and obviously they can only see from the corners. Same way it was with vehicles and stuff up until the current age we are living in. So here we've got defense points, structural damage. As you can see, a wall collapsing here. That's excellent. So it's showing you how you can actually damage the fortification itself. It's showing numbers here being ticked off, so that's interesting. I wonder if it takes a certain number of hit points to take down buildings. That's pretty awesome. Yep, once again, weakened sections. If you have a section destroyed, then the 2 sections beside it start to collapse, and then the tertiary sections begin to collapse after that. So I guess weakening a specific point of the wall, that's pretty cool right there, where they show the actual collapsed wall. Weakening a section of the wall obviously weakens the sections adjacent to it, which is total common sense. Look at this art. Oh my god, those goblins look amazing. Oh, I love this old school. Look at so funny. I'm not sure if he's getting hit in the head with an arrow. Oh no, the arrow knocked off his hat. Oh, but he's got 2 in his chest, so yeah, he did definitely get hit. Wild. Wild. Love the old school artwork. Just a random color page, eh? Right in the middle of a whole bunch of black and white pages. I was actually expecting there to be a whole bunch more color pages, so that's pretty cool. Just mix them throughout. So there you go. Wall collapses. Gate damage. Gates and doors. How all that works. Type of door. Here we go. Yep. So tower to the courtyard. Courtyard to wall. Toughness 6, toughness 4. 4 damage points, 2 damage points, there you go. Okay. So, very much like structure points, or hull points, I imagine 40k were. It would be that kind of thing, sort of like wounds. Counting down, right? Once you hit 0, your wall collapses. Pretty cool. Again, with the color pages, they're really pushing this plastic castle. I bet that this plastic castle came out specifically for this supplement. And they kept selling this thing right up until, I would imagine, even 2010 or so. They might even still sell it. I don't even know. To be perfectly honest with you, it's a timeless piece. I mean, really, a castle is a castle. So there's no reason why they shouldn't still sell this plastic castle. It's beauty. And then these, I mean, you could always just make that yourself. That one there even looks like it's made out of popsicle sticks and toothpicks. Yeah, totally. I mean, I can literally see that that's made out of popsicle sticks and like skinny dowels. Badass. There we go. Unleashing the knights from the gate. That's pretty cool. Down here we got a bunch of dwarfs and humans all allied together defending against the orcs. Yep, those are wolf chariots with goblins there, goblin wolf riders. So I guess it's a goblin army. Nope, these are all goblins, so I imagine actually this is all just dwarves. I thought it was humans and dwarves, but it looks like dwarves. Cool. Moving on. Blocking. Ah, you ain't going through this door. Blocking gateways, breaches, fighting a blocking model. This guy's like, you ain't getting through this door. Oh, my dead body. Assaulting ramparts, ladders. Here we go. We got these 4 guys carrying a ladder. That's pretty cool. Let's assume that's literally how it has to work. You're gonna have to get your dudes to like bum, 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 all the way up with the ladder. Throw it up the wall, and then I assume you have to avoid. Yeah, there you go. Dropping ladders, erecting ladders. So yeah. I see. So your ladder can not only just fall, but your enemy can also push your ladder off, which is pretty neat. Ooh, here we go. So there you go. I'll just turn this way for a second here, so you can really take a good look at that. So there you go. You got your 2 players. They're clearly playing a game of Warhammer, and you've got this guy here with the binder, who is obviously the game master. Wild. So the fact that you even needed a game master back then is just insane by today's standards. I mean, the way we play now is just nuts. But looking at it again from a Dungeons and Dragons perspective, that is literally the evolution of it right there. So you're going from like having your, well, DM in the case of Dungeons and Dragons, right? Running a story for the entire group. This is a full-out mass combat miniature war game where the scenario is being set up by a third party who is neither player, so there's really no advantage there. Nowadays, obviously, the scenarios sort of generate themselves, and they've written them that way on purpose, but I guess it would be kind of cool to be a game master and run a game for 2 other people. So here we go, blocking a ladder. There you go, you got the orcs at the bottom, humans at the top. Other way around there. The orcs have come over the wall, now the humans have to put up another ladder to be able to go up from the inside even. That's pretty cool. And battle bonus, ladders, ramparts to courtyards, attacking down a courtyard via ladder. Ladders on parapets. Grappling hooks, that's badass. This goblin climbing the thing. This is nuts. You just got 2 dwarves up there, and these guys are trying to climb the ladder. Guy's falling off. Oh man. Orcs and goblins make for the best artwork, do they not? Casting down unattended ladders. Cool, so if there's nobody on the ladder, you can just throw the ladder off the wall. Grappling hooks, casting down grappling hooks, climbing a line, blocking grapples. Routes and grapples. Sweet, log rams. So we got rules for battering rams. Defending walls, that's interesting. Dropping missiles, preparing drop missiles. Boulders, rocks. Dropping lime on people's heads, that's pretty funny. There we go, that's what I'm talking about. You gotta drop that flaming liquid on their heads. Dropping hot coals, awareness of braziers. Preparing hot missiles, so that would be flaming arrows. Pouring hot missiles. Huh, I guess they consider any ranged attack a missile attack. There you go, you got water, hot oil, hot lead. And then splashing, so you've got some kind of D6 here, I imagine, and then it could splash out a series of inches. Looks like we're working in 2-inch increments. It's pretty cool. In this example, a splash occurred, a D6 is rolled for the direction, and then the splash template is placed against the 4 zone, because 4 was rolled, obviously. D4 is rolled for the distance, I see. So it could be max 4 inches out. That's pretty cool. First 2 rings on the splash taping take an automatic strength 2 hit with a normal armor save. Neat. Moving on. Some badass looking dwarves right there. Edges of the template, moving missiles around the castles. That's a cool shot, actually, seeing the orc army come over the horizon. That's neat. showing some examples. Again, they're mixing the color pages in with the black and white. That was like unheard of in this era. But I guess because this is a hardcover, they went the extra mile. Make this a little nicer book. Of course, nowadays they're all full color, but again, technology has evolved a lot since then. The game has evolved a lot since then. The aesthetic has changed, and people are not willing to pay for a hardcover black and white book when they can get a hardcover color book. Am I correct? I buy all the books, but that's because I'm a bibliophile. Obviously, or else I wouldn't be doing these videos, right? Alright, so we got large humanoids in the game. Ogres, minotaurs, troglodytes, tree-mens, giants, trolls. Concealment, blocking, split-level engagements, climbing. Centauroids. Not sure what that is. I mentioned a centaur, but there's centauroids. I guess like a dragon ogre and stuff like that is a centauroid. It's a half ogre, half dragon. Sweet, there you go again. Two dudes playing, one dude running the game with a binder. Badass. Cool. Sorry, I just like to leave that open for you guys to stare at for a second. Special equipment, defender, attacker, beginning the game. There we go. So you can literally purchase your special equipment, whether that be, you know, log rams, ladders, grappling lines, hot water, hot oil, hot sand, per batch it says. So I guess it's 5 points per barrel of hot oil you want to drop over the thing. 10 points for a log ram, 10 points for a ladder. Cool. So yeah, you don't bring enough rams, you don't get in. You don't bring enough ladders, you don't get your orcs over the wall, right? Cool. Recreating a battle. Dwarf defenders, goblinoid attackers. So dwarf defenders have a 500 point army, and the goblins have a 1,000 point army. That's interesting. Dwarf warriors occupy units. Character models may be attached to units, may act independently. The arc player must arrange his troops into units in the same troop type. Interesting. North, south, east, west divisions as described earlier. Yeah. I was just trying to see why they had twice as many points, but I imagine it's kind of like the Planetfall scenarios nowadays, where the defender gets a whole bunch of fortifications, but it's in 40k I'm talking. The defender gets access to a whole bunch of fortifications, but the attacker is recommended to take a severe point advantage. I'm not sure if it's double. In this case it's double. I imagine maybe it's still the same case, but definitely the attacker is supposed to have a severe point advantage on the defender, simply because the defender gets all these free fortifications, right? So they try to, you know, somewhat even it out. Cool. So now we're looking at introducing you to strategic maps. Ah, I see. That's what I was talking about earlier with north, south, east, and west. So you got a north quadrant, south, east, and west. On the maps, strategic movement, missile ranges, unit counters, strategic awareness, encampment zones, cool, so you can set up an encampment off to the side, waiting to invade. All these siege towers on the distance, all the goofy looking orcs. So funny. I just love the old school artwork. I'm sorry to keep saying that. Strategic time, mining, breaking strategic time. Mining operations construction in strategic time, fully described in the chapter on construction. Huh. So I'd imagine that would really matter. Again, I haven't read through this book entirely, and I don't have a full understanding of this era of Warhammer rule set, but it seems to me that would be very relational. That would be in relation to campaign system, obviously, because there would be a strategic time, which is interesting. I'd imagine that would be between games, because why else would you be mining for ore in order to construct your castle? I imagine you're not doing that while they're invading, you're doing that between games. So there you go, you got supply points. That's pretty neat. Foraging and tabletop time. Siege machines, here we go. Now we're getting into stuff. So we got crews, open and closed machines, machines that fire missiles. Badass. These dwarves firing this catapult. And human trebuchets. Sweet. Destroying machines, hand-to-hand combat. This is probably one of the first times artillery was introduced, I would imagine, because they seem to be really focusing on how these machines interact in the game. And again, if you're putting that, I would imagine if they're putting this kind of detail into this book specifically, that it doesn't exist in other books before it. But that's an assumption. There you go, ammunition counters, cool. Positioning ammunition, moving ammunition. Oh wow, so you literally have to like have enough ammunition nearby your machines in order to use them. It's not like even past editions of Warhammer where like they just had unlimited ammo. You actually have to make sure you purchase enough ammo before the game. That's how granular this is. That's insane. Rate of fire, counter fire. Strategic counter fire. Ooh! It's an old Chaos Dwarf missile launcher. I actually have 3 of these in my collection. This old lead model here. That is so cool. So cool. Cool. Missile throwing profiles. There you go. Bolt thrower, stone thrower, cannons, and mortars. Badass. Enginery of Assault. We've got these cool battering ram deals with the... I forget what they're called. It probably even tells you here. It doesn't even tell you. Cruise, movement. Interesting. Cool. But yeah, those wheeled things with the swinging battery ram with the roof on it so that the hot coals don't drop directly on their heads. It's amazing the evolution of siege warfare. Even in real life, I mean. Obviously they tried to mimic that with this game. Cool. Got some orc catapults and stuff there. This is neat. All the halflings and humans and stuff inside. So cool. Like a cutaway. That is a badass diorama. I don't even care. So you even got these guys underneath, like making sure that they're dwarves literally underneath the castle, making sure that the foundation stays intact. I also have 1 or 2 of these old Chaos Dwarf mortars there. Love the old 80s models. Nothing like lead figures. There you go. It's just a battering ram. I thought there would be a better name for it. Interesting. Mouse, drill, pick. Cool. So yeah, I guess it's just a more advanced battering ram. Pretty neat. Engines of Assault profiles. How much damage they do. Points costs. Cool. So the more crew you give your machines, like for your battering ram here, you're increasing the strength of it based on how many people I guess are swinging this battering ram. And obviously the points increase, but the damage also increases too. Strength loss per casualty. You start with strength 10 if you have 10 crew, but as you lose 1 guy, it goes down to 9, goes down to 8. It's not based on this scale. Throughout the game, you lose strength. That's interesting. That's really interesting, actually. Screens, general rules for screens, moving screens, screened machines, crews, points costs. There you go. 6 crew, 20 points. 6 crew, 15 points. 35 points. Cool. This is educational. I always love looking back at these books, even if we don't have a concrete understanding of how the rules worked back then. It is really neat just to see all the old school stuff and how it all worked back then. Yeah, again, this thing totally looks like it's made out of popsicle sticks. Some sculpting putty. Cool. I almost want to make a few of those just for fun. Moving on. Okay, there you go. I guess it's called a sow or sow. Again, I'm not entirely knowledgeable on medieval siege warfare, but there you go. I guess you can have a sow with a battering ram attached to it. You have a mantlet here. That's pretty cool. It's like a movable wall that you can hide behind to prevent the arrows from hitting you. That's neat. I really like that. Siege towers. Siege tower with no drawbridge. Siege tower with drawbridge. Level 3 drawbridge. Level 2 drawbridge. Level 3 drawbridge. I imagine that's the 1, 2, 3 levels they showed us at the beginning. Like I say, much like past editions of the game have worked with size and lines of sight and such. Supplies. Initial supplies. Using supplies. Although small, halflings have tremendous appetites and use twice as many supplies as human-sized troops. Halflings. That's hilarious. Large humanoids. Cool. So again, how granular this system is. It's like literally you have to make sure there's enough food for your dudes, you have to make sure there's enough ammo for your dudes, you have to make sure that you have, like I say, enough ladders, enough oil, enough, you know, like it's wow, like this would probably make for a really time-consuming game, but I guarantee you it would make for a more interesting campaign than probably a lot of the current incarnations. I don't even know how campaign systems work in Age of Sigmar anymore. I really need to get back into that game. Anyway, old school Warhammer. Construction. Yep, there you go. Supplies, non-human workers. So I guess you're able to employ large humanoids. I guess that would be ogres and things like that. We got trolls, we got dwarves, high elves, halflings. Sweet. That diorama we saw where all the dwarves were underneath working on the foundation. I guess you employ dwarves to help with your foundation. There you go. Tunnel fighters, dwarf engineers, earthworks, encampment zones, ready zones. Neat. Mining. Attacking player secretly informs the GM that he is digging a mine. Can then be marked by a strategic map. Minehead counters. That's what the strategic map is. It's off the board. This is why you have to have a game master, I guess, because there's a lot of things that one player should know and the other player shouldn't, but you have to kind of, you know, have somebody to witness that he's not cheating, kind of idea. Plus, obviously, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on behind the scenes that both players probably shouldn't see, and so that would be where the Game Master comes in. I am understanding the reason for that now. Again, like I say, nowadays, they really try to make the game run itself. And we've had like 20 years of experience at that, so, you know, this era is long gone, but that's okay. Constructing siege machines, cool. So you literally have to like make the machines. You can't just be like, I bought this model, I'm going to throw it in for this many points. It's like literally you have to like make the machines as the campaign goes on. That's neat. Counter mining. Tunnel fighting. Oh, you're building a mine, are you? Well, we're going to dig a tunnel right into it and fuck you up while you're in there. Flying creatures, aerial levels. There you go, buildings clearly have levels. 1, 2 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20. For example, you can fly over the highest level of border fortresses, level 3. To fly over level 3, a creature must rise to at least the height of a level 10 plus. To clear a building, level 6. To clear a building, level 6, a flying creature must rise to a height of plus 20, and so on. Wow, that's so overly complicated. Wow, so your guys don't just fly, you have to literally like get them to certain levels while they're flying. So intense, so intense. Wall restrictions, aerial reconnaissance. Magic, how does magic apply in Siege? Spellcaster to one side of a boundary casts a spell, which to take effect, an additional test must be rolled. Crazy. Lightning bolts, fireballs, the purchases of rules, wind blast spells. Follow the normal rules governing missiles in line of sight. Cannot be targeted through walls, obviously. Parapet. Cool. Supernatural creatures, what does that mean? Undead, ethereals, demonics, elementals. Chaos who have gained dimensional instability, mutation, realm of chaos. Or I'll show you guys the realm of chaos book next, actually, probably. In this playlist. But let's finish looking at this right now. Cool. So again, I'm not entirely knowledgeable on this era of Warhammer, but I imagine that magical creatures are affected by magic, help or hinder magic based on what they are, and I guess that would include demons and undead and all that stuff. Extinguishing fires. Cool, rules for fires, rules for expanding your castle as you go. Adapting the castle. Right, okay. Towers and walls, so you're literally putting a tower on top of the wall. That's interesting. Neat. Battlement 4, tower level 3, tower level 2, tower level 1. Cool. Alright. I am understanding this. Cool. Wow. They're giving you some really weird constructions and stuff for all these, eh? There you go, putting roofs and stuff. For a hall. Okay, yeah, we're just looking at like different... And then here we go. Rogue Trader rules. Siege in the 41st Millennium. Cool. So you can see even here that the format of the pages is laid out very differently than these, right? You got that sort of as your header. You got these as your header. So we were looking at the compendium last week, or not last week, last time on these videos. And as you can see, they've laid it out in the Rogue Trader format. It's pretty cool. That would be like nowadays, like doing a book that was both Sigmar and 40k, and literally keeping the Sigmar War Scroll aesthetic for that, and then the Data Slate aesthetic for 40k. Siege is in the far future. Look at this. What a cool piece of art. This guy's literally shot in the face and with blood splattering up. You got the beaky Space Marines, because that was all that existed back then. This orc is literally smoking a cigar. Oh, love it. So good. Okay, so we got some example scenarios. Mixed sieges. Conventional sieges. Vengeance is mine. Purge the unclean. Cool. Setting up siege battle. Primitive and conventional forces. All points, values, systems, and balances on either side, but the following modifications are necessary. Okay, so what they're telling you here is that for 40k, you're using all the Warhammer rules, but then you're adding on these rules, like literally bolting them on. So this is not going to be as in-depth. As you can see, it's like, I don't know, a sixth as many pages as the rest of the Warhammer Siege rules were. So again, these rule systems were very similar, and of course, I would imagine then their point scales are also very similar, so they're allowing you to use the Warhammer rules in Warhammer 40,000, but then of course adding on this stuff, because everything that exists in Warhammer would exist in Warhammer 40,000, but not everything that exists in Warhammer 40,000 would exist in Warhammer for obvious reasons. They don't have plasma pistols and bolt pistols and power armor and things in Warhammer, but they definitely have bow and arrows and battering rams and stuff like that in the 41st Millennium. So, going on to the next page. Defending your fortress, minefields. Oh yeah, that's a little more futuristic-y looking than just your standard castle. Shooting lasers down with these orc dreadnoughts. We got squats with a metal detector, that's kind of neat. Allying with some Space Marines, cool. Triggering mines, trigger mechanisms, there you go. So we've got deploying mines. Armor, there you go. How it affects being hit by a mine or blowing the hell up, that's pretty cool. Trigger sensitivity, large creatures, vehicles, how they're affected by mines. Cool, cool, cool. Wow, back then it is unheard of to have three Eldar dreadnoughts, that's insane. There you go, an orc firing what appears to be a multi-melta, but who knows. The artwork was so abstract back then. Cool. There you go, again, collapsed wall. I like how they did the smoke effect there. That's pretty neat, especially for the time period. Without computer generation. It was literally probably some dry ice or something. Wall-mounted weapons, here we go. Now we're getting into some stuff. There you go. You got a flamer on there, 180-degree fire arc. Heavy flamer to fire off the top. We got some crazy like siege laser cannon thing here, shooting some dreadnoughts again. That's probably a continuation to the last drawing we saw over there. Looking out the little slit there with the lasers shooting down at the dreadnoughts. That's pretty neat how they did that. Troop armaments, graviton guns. Ooh, graviton gun. That's neat. Again, I started playing this game in 2nd edition, and we didn't see grav guns until, like, what, 6th? Crazy that they existed in Rogue Trader. Although I suppose at that time they brought back the Gene Stealer cults, they brought back the Adeptus Mechanicus, all the things that existed in Rogue Trader that they had taken out in later editions of Warhammer 40,000. Ooh, pictures of old models. Let's take a look at this. Take a gander. Look at the old Space Marine Dreadnought. How silly looking they were. A couple more over here. Got some Eldar Dreadnoughts over here. So it looks to me like we've got squats, humans, and Eldar versus orcs. And again, we're using the same plastic Warhammer castle. We've got an analog tower that they've built out of raw materials. This battlefield looks so Warhammer, even though it's Warhammer 40,000 units. And again, green flock everywhere. Crazy. That's just the way it was back then. Everybody had a green table in those days. Hell, I even had a green table when I was younger. Just bought one of those mats and glued it down onto some melamine. Energy fields. Neat. Approaching a fortress. You got a guardian shoving a chainsword into this orc dude here. Look at this goofy guy. Hee. There you go. Scenery, minefields, defensive fire, destroying walls and towers. So I guess it's a little bit different than the charts that we saw earlier in this video. Again, there's telling you basically like use the original rules, but then these are the amendments to make it 40k-ified. So humans and Eldar were really like friends back then. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Dreadnought with a Wrecking Ball. That's neat. And the Eldar Dreadnought with a Wrecking Ball. Cool. I guess orcs are mean enough an enemy for humans and Eldar to side with each other. Although, if I remember correctly, even in 2nd Ed, they were allies. Humans and Eldar. So that's something. Squats were on their way out at that point. But they were basically humans, right? Siege Dreadnought. So there you go. That must be what we were just seeing. Demolisher. This is a crude but very effective ball and chain affixed to one of the Dreadnought's limbs. Pounder, webnet, head shield, las cutters, face field generators. Okay. So that ball and chain, I guess, is 10 points. It's got 1 hit point. So you just sit there and pound away at a wall and eventually it'll come down. It's neat. Then I'll give you an example. Imperial Siege Dreadnought. Again with the silly names, the Samson class. They're just calling it that because the player wanted to call it that. Well, in this case it was the guys who wrote the book, but anyway. Fortress compositions, exotic materials. Look at the silly looking plasma cannon. Hee. Things were so goofy back then, but there you definitely got squats running around underneath the castle, very similar to how we had the dwarves in the last one. So there you go, with the 2 games being very similar. Literally, Warhammer 40,000 was Warhammer in space. That is awesome. That is a Tyranid castle. That is nuts. I can't believe they even went there with it. And it's like spewing liquid out of like some mouth. Oh, Alien Constructions, there you go, that's why. That is so cool. So rather than make a whole new Tyranid thing, it's like literally, it'll be all the same rules for castles. It's just you're making it look all gross and buggy. Funny. Oh, here we go. Fort McCraig. Hilarious. McCraig now being the capital, the homeworld, sorry, of the Ultramarines. Capital of Ultramar, homeworld of the Ultramarines. So literally, you're just using the same plastic Warhammer castle, just putting like gun turrets on the top. And they're showing like a whole catacombs and everything underneath. Wild. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Cool. I wonder if they're just showing you that for fluff reasons, or if it actually is like you could do like layered maps, because that would be neat. I've seen some people do that for gaming tables and dioramas and stuff, but I wasn't sure of like any actual rules. So maybe back in this edition you could actually do that, have like multiple, like a dungeon under your castle, which is wicked cool. Especially, like I say, from a Dungeons and Dragons perspective, that is definitely attractive. And yeah, this is literally caves, so it's all twisty, turny stuff. Okay, I guess this is an orc fortress. Winding bit. Oh, that's so cool. Alright, and Army List Editions, here you go. Same way they did in the Warhammer part of this book. They have now given you extra stuff you can add on to your lists, all the point costs, all their stats. Basically, there you go, wall-mounted weapons, we got energy fields. So again, you're paying points for all of this stuff. It's not like anything's free, it's not like anything, it's like off-sided. You know, you've decided on a 2,000 point game, that's what you're playing, right? Including all of the siege equipment, weaponry, all the extra stuff that you want on top of your dudes. I like it. I like it. I like how they did that. That's cool. Siege Dreadnoughts, all the additional rules for all the extra equipment that you can give your Dreadnoughts to make them better. So there you go. Orc Siege Dreadnoughts, Eldar Siege Dreadnoughts, Imperial Siege Dreadnoughts. Neat. And there you go. Advertising the plastic castle that I've been talking about this entire video. Mighty Fortress. From fantasy to the 41st millennium. Castle's a castle's a castle, right? So cool. I wonder if you can still get that plastic kit. I kind of want it, just for shits and gigs, you know? So cool. And then, yep, showing you all the Rogue Trader books, the Warhammer books. Otherwise, we're gonna keep going on the Rogue Trader stuff next time. So that was the Warhammer Siege Book for both Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader. And next time we will be going on to the Realm of Chaos book for this era of Warhammer 40,000. Again, usable in both games. So I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at this blast from the past. This is one of the oldest books in my collection. Again, I'm trying to go through the Rogue Trader sets right now. Again, I don't have the original Rogue Trader rulebook, but what books I do have, I'm trying to go through with you guys. Also, we've gone over some old Warhammer books as well in the past. This one being usable in both Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader at the time. The next one I'm going to go over with you guys when we come out with the next video is going to be the Realm of Chaos book, also usable in both games. So I want to kind of keep going in that sort of chronological order for you guys, leading into second edition of 40K. As you can see behind me here, I've got all my books, so there's plenty to still cover. If you like these videos, if you like all of our videos, please hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell notification so you will be notified when these videos come out, because I love talking about the old books, and I hope you love watching the old books, or at least seeing them, just perusing through them and stuff. I know we're not going into extreme details here, guys, but I love looking back on these old books, and I hope you love them too. If you really love these videos, as well as all the other videos that we do, our battle reports, our terrain tutorials, all the other stuff that we do, you can go to the description below and check out our Patreon campaign, and on there is a whole list of rewards that you guys can get just for giving us a little bit of your money. very little, as much or as little as you'd like, and there are plenty of rewards for you guys, including perpetual 10% off the warpainter.com, which is great. They sell everything from Vallejo to Broken Toad, all the Scale 75 stuff, all the paints, accessories that you need, and just for being a patron of ours, it gets you 10% off. There's also a whole bunch of other perks that come along with being a patron of Encounter Wargaming, so please check that out, guys. Otherwise, if you're just into this stuff and just want to, you know, keep watching, then just please hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you at our next encounter.
Like a monkey in a rocket on his way back home. Okay.